9 professional hitmen accepted contract on single dad veteran. All 9 refunded money within 48 hours. But when each killer came face to face with a quiet dad and his little girl, something so powerful broke them down that every single one gave the money back, and the truth of why will leave you speechless. Before we get into the story, comment below where in the world you are watching from today. The kitchen filled with warmth and the smell of baked chicken as Jack Rourke moved around the small space, his movements precise and practiced. Steam rose from a pot of vegetables on the stove while Lily, perched on a kitchen stool, swung her legs back and forth as she carefully set the table. "Did you remember the napkins, sweetheart?" Jack asked, checking the chicken in the oven. "Yes, Daddy," Lily beamed, proudly pointing to the neatly folded paper napkins beside their plates. "And I put the forks on the left, just like you taught me." Jack couldn't help but smile. His daughter's attention to detail reminded him so much of her mother. "Perfect job, Lily Pad." The nickname made her giggle just as it always did. Her laughter was like sunshine, warming the modest kitchen with its worn countertops and dated appliances. It wasn't much, but it was home. "Can I help with anything else?" Lily asked, bouncing slightly on her toes. "You can tell me about your day while I finish up here," Jack said, pulling the golden brown chicken from the oven. The familiar routine of dinner preparation helped ease the constant vigilance that had become second nature during his military years. "Oh, we learned about butterflies today." Lily's eyes lit up as she launched into her story. "Miss Thompson brought in a chrysalis, and we're going to watch it turn into a butterfly. Did you know they start as tiny caterpillars?" Jack listened intently as he served their plates, nodding at all the right moments. Her enthusiasm was contagious, and he found himself genuinely fascinated by her detailed description of metamorphosis. When everything was ready, they sat down together at their small kitchen table. Before eating, they joined hands for grace, just as they did every evening. "Would you like to say it tonight?" Jack asked. Lily nodded solemnly, closing her eyes and bowing her head. "Dear God, thank you for this food and for Daddy who made it. Thank you for my teacher and the butterfly we're going to see. And thank you for watching over Mommy in heaven. Amen." Jack squeezed her hand gently before letting go, his heart full of love and a touch of sadness. "Amen, sweetheart." They ate together, sharing stories and small jokes. Lily told him about the playground games at recess, and Jack shared a funny story about the hardware store where he now worked. It was these simple moments that meant everything to him. Just father and daughter, safe and together. After dinner, Jack helped Lily with her homework, then supervised her bedtime routine. She changed into her favorite pajamas, the ones with little stars all over them, and brushed her teeth without complaint. "Story time?" she asked hopefully, already pulling her favorite book from the shelf. "One story," Jack agreed, settling into the chair beside her bed. He read about a brave little mouse who helped a lion, making all the different voices that always made Lily smile. By the time he finished, her eyes were heavy with sleep. "Good night, Daddy," she murmured as he tucked the blankets around her. "I love you." "I love you too, Lily Pad. Sweet dreams." He kissed her forehead and turned on her nightlight before quietly closing the door. The house felt different after Lily went to bed. Quieter, more vulnerable. Jack was washing the dishes when he heard it, a soft scraping sound from outside. His hands stilled in the soapy water, every muscle tensing. Years of military training kicked in automatically, his senses sharpening as he listened intently. There it was again. Something wasn't right. Moving silently, Jack dried his hands and switched off the kitchen light. He moved through the darkened house with practiced ease, keeping away from windows. The sound had come from the direction of the front porch. He approached the front door cautiously, staying to one side as he peered through the peephole. The porch light illuminated empty wooden boards, but something white caught his eye. An envelope lying on the welcome mat. Jack's pulse quickened. He hadn't heard any footsteps, no car engines, nothing to indicate someone had approached the house. Yet there it was. After a thorough scan of the surrounding area through various windows, Jack carefully opened the front door. The envelope lay innocently on the mat, unmarked except for his name written in block letters. He picked it up with steady hands, though his heart was racing. Inside was a single sheet of paper with 5 words that made his blood run cold. "Your past has caught up with you." Jack quickly stepped back inside, locking the door behind him. He moved through the house methodically, checking every window, every lock, drawing all the blinds. His mind raced through possibilities. Who could have sent this? Why now? What did they want? Finally, after triple-checking the security of the house, he found himself drawn to Lily's room. He eased the door open and slipped inside, settling into the chair where he'd read her story earlier. In the soft glow of her nightlight, Jack watched his daughter sleep. She looked so peaceful, so innocent. Her chest rose and fell with steady breaths. One arm wrapped around her favorite stuffed rabbit. A strand of hair had fallen across her face, and he resisted the urge to brush it away, not wanting to risk waking her. The life they'd built here was simple but good. After leaving the military, after losing his wife, Jack had poured everything into creating a safe, stable home for Lily. They had their routines, their quiet moments, their shared jokes and stories. He'd finally started to feel like they were finding their footing, like the weight of the past was beginning to lift. But now, sitting in the darkness of his daughter's room with that threatening note burning a hole in his pocket, Jack felt the carefully constructed piece of their life beginning to crack. Whatever storm was coming, he would face it. He had to, for Lily's sake. But the thought of anything disrupting the sanctuary he'd built for his daughter made his heart ache. He settled deeper into the chair, prepared to keep watch through the night. The envelope in his pocket felt heavy with unspoken dangers, but for now, Lily slept on peacefully, unaware of the shadows gathering around their quiet life. The morning sun painted long shadows across the sidewalk as Jack and Lily made their familiar walk to school. Lily skipped ahead a few steps, her backpack bouncing with each hop, then waited for her father to catch up before doing it again. It was their usual morning routine, but today felt different to Jack. His eyes constantly scanned their surroundings, checking corners and shadows. "Look, Daddy! The Thompsons' roses are blooming." Lily pointed to a nearby garden, her face bright with wonder. "They sure are, sweetheart," Jack replied, managing a smile while his trained gaze caught movement across the street. A man in worn jeans and a faded jacket leaned against a building, appearing to read a newspaper. But something was off. His stance was too deliberate, his awareness too sharp. The man's shoes, though scuffed, were expensive ones Jack recognized from his military days. This was no drifter. "Can we plant roses in our garden?" Lily asked, oblivious to her father's tension. Jack kept his voice steady, not wanting to alarm her. "Maybe we can look at some flower seeds this weekend." He guided Lily with a gentle hand on her shoulder, positioning himself between her and the stranger across the street. They continued their walk, Lily chattering about her upcoming day at school. Jack listened and responded, but his military instincts were on high alert. The man had folded his newspaper and was moving parallel to them on the opposite side of the street, maintaining the same distance. When they reached the school gates, Jack knelt down to hug Lily goodbye. "Have a great day, Lily Pad. Remember, Mrs. Peterson is picking you up for your playdate with Sarah after school." "I know, Daddy," Lily said, giving him an extra squeeze. "We're going to make friendship bracelets." "That sounds wonderful." Jack watched her join the stream of children heading into the building, waiting until she disappeared inside before turning back toward town. The streets were beginning to fill with morning commuters and shop owners opening their businesses. Jack walked purposefully, taking a route that would lead him past the hardware store where he worked. The man from earlier was still following, though trying to be subtle about it. Near the town center, Jack cut through an alley he knew well, a calculated risk to force a confrontation on his terms. The narrow passage ran between two brick buildings, connecting to a small courtyard used for deliveries. He stopped halfway through, his back to the wall, and waited. The man appeared at the alley's entrance moments later. Seeing Jack waiting, he dropped all pretense of subtlety and approached with measured steps. "Jack Rourke," the man said, his voice gravelly but controlled. "Former Special Forces, father of one, widower." "You seem to know a lot about me," Jack replied evenly, though his muscles were coiled tight, ready for anything. The man nodded, keeping a respectful distance. "I make it my business to know my targets. Name's Marcus. I was hired to kill you." The words hung in the air between them. Jack's mind raced through possible escape routes, weapons within reach, but he kept his expression neutral. "Was?" Marcus studied him for a long moment. "You know what I saw this morning? I saw a man walking his little girl to school. A man who checked every corner, every shadow. Not for himself, but for her. I saw how you positioned yourself between me and her, without ever letting her know something was wrong. "If you're here to threaten my daughter," Jack's voice carried a dangerous edge. "No," Marcus cut in, raising his hand slightly. "That's exactly my point. I've been watching you for 3 days. You work honest hours at the hardware store. You help old Mrs. Wilson with her groceries every Tuesday. You're teaching your daughter to be kind in a world that often isn't." He reached into his jacket, moving slowly to show he meant no threat, and pulled out an envelope. "This is the money I was paid to take you out. I'm giving it back to the client. I don't know what you did to get on someone's bad side, but I'm not taking this job." Jack stared at the envelope, momentarily speechless. In his years of service, he'd encountered all types of people, but this was unprecedented. "Why?" "Because some things matter more than money," Marcus replied simply. "And because your daughter deserves to have her father walk her to school tomorrow, and the day after that." He tucked the envelope away. "But Jack, whoever wants you dead, they won't stop with me. Be careful." With that, Marcus turned and walked away, leaving Jack alone in the alley with his thoughts whirling. The encounter had lasted barely 5 minutes, but it had shaken his world. Someone wanted him dead badly enough to hire a hitman. But who? And why? Jack made his way home in a daze, his mind racing through possibilities. Old enemies from his military days? Someone connected to his last mission? The possibilities were endless and equally disturbing. Inside his house, Jack moved from room to room, checking windows and locks again. He thought about Lily, safely at school, blissfully unaware of the danger surrounding them. How could he protect her from something he didn't understand? Should he tell her? No, not yet. Not until he knew more. She deserved to hold on to her sense of security as long as possible. Standing at his living room window, Jack's heart sank as he spotted an unfamiliar black sedan idling across the street. The windows were tinted, hiding its occupants, but he knew with crushing certainty this wasn't over. Marcus might have walked away, but someone else was already waiting to take his place. The kitchen, filled with the comforting aroma of simmering tomato sauce as Jack stirred the pot of spaghetti. His movements were mechanical, his mind elsewhere as he added a pinch of salt to the boiling water. Through the kitchen window, the setting sun cast long orange rays across the countertop, but the beauty of the evening was lost on him. "Something smells good, Daddy," Lily's voice rang out as she bounced into the kitchen, still in her school clothes. Her ponytail had come loose during the day, wisps of hair framing her face. Jack managed to smile, pushing his worries aside. "Spaghetti night, sweetheart. Want to help set the table? Can I use the fancy napkins?" Lily was already pulling open the drawer where they kept the cloth napkins her mother had loved so much. "Sure thing, Princess." Jack watched as she carefully laid out 2 places at their small kitchen table, her tongue poking out in concentration as she aligned the forks just right. The normality of the moment almost made Jack forget about the morning's encounter, about the stranger who'd admitted to being sent to kill him. Almost. He was draining the pasta when Lily spoke again. "Did you remember the garlic bread? Check the oven," Jack said, nodding toward the warm glow behind the glass door. Lily peered in, her face lighting up. "You did!" Just as Jack was setting the steaming bowl of spaghetti on the table, a sharp knock echoed through the house. His muscles tensed instantly, but he kept his voice steady. "Stay here, Lily. I'll get it." "But the food will get cold," she protested, already seated and eyeing the pasta hungrily. "Just a minute, sweetheart." Jack moved quietly to the front door, his bare feet silent on the wooden floors. Through the peephole, he saw a man in a brown delivery uniform, holding a package. Something felt off. The delivery services usually came during the day, not at dinner time, and there was something about the way the man held himself, too rigid, too alert. Jack opened the door, keeping the security chain latched. "Can I help you?" "Package for Jack Rourke," the man said, his voice friendly but his eyes sharp. "I wasn't expecting anything. Sign here, please." The man held out an electronic pad, and when Jack hesitated, he suddenly threw his weight against the door. The chain snapped with a metallic ping. Jack stumbled backward but caught his balance, immediately positioning himself between the intruder and the kitchen where Lily Saturday. The delivery uniform concealed a gun, which the man now pointed at Jack's chest. "Daddy?" Lily's voice called from the kitchen. "Who is it?" "Stay there, Lily." Jack's voice remained calm despite the weapon trained on him. "Just keep setting the table, sweetheart." The intruder's eyes flickered toward the kitchen, then back to Jack. Something in his expression shifted. "She sounds young," he said quietly. "She's 8. Jack didn't move, didn't flinch. Listen to her humming while she sets the table. That's Yellow Submarine. Her mother taught it to her before she passed. Indeed, Lily's clear voice could be heard softly singing the Beatles tune from the kitchen. The man's gun hand wavered slightly. "You're the second one today," Jack continued, his voice low and steady. "I don't know who hired you, but I'm guessing they didn't mention my daughter." The man's jaw tightened. "No, they didn't. Whatever they're paying you, it's not worth destroying her world. She's already lost her mother. Don't make her lose her father, too." The humming continued from the kitchen, innocent and sweet. The man looked at the gun in his hand as if seeing it for the first time. "I've done some bad things," the hitman said, his voice barely above a whisper. "But this," he lowered the weapon. "I can't." Not with her in the next room, singing Beatles songs and setting the table for dinner with her dad. Jack remained still, watching as the man tucked the gun away and reached into his pocket. He pulled out an envelope, thick with cash. "The payment I received," he explained, setting it on the side table by the door. "I'm sorry about your door chain. Daddy?" Lily called again. "The bread smell's done." "Be right there, Princess," Jack called back, his eyes never leaving the intruder. The man backed toward the door. "Whoever wanted this done, they'll send others. But it won't be me. Keep her safe." With that, he slipped out into the growing darkness, leaving Jack standing in his entryway with an envelope full of blood money and a broken door chain. "Comin', Lily." Jack moved quickly to the kitchen, where his daughter sat swinging her legs under the table. "The bread's getting crispy," she informed him seriously. "Can't have that, can we?" Jack retrieved the garlic bread from the oven, going through the motions of a normal dinner while his mind raced. They ate together, Lily chattering about her day while Jack nodded and smiled at all the right moments. Later, after teeth were brushed and stories were read, Jack tucked Lily into bed. She curled up with her favorite stuffed elephant, already heavy-lidded with sleep. "Love you, Daddy," she murmured. "Love you too, Princess." Jack kissed her forehead and quietly closed her door. Downstairs in the kitchen, the dishes were done and the leftovers put away. But Jack couldn't rest. He sat at the table, the house silent except for the soft hum of the refrigerator. In his hands he held a silver frame containing a photograph of Sarah, his late wife. Her smile was exactly like Lily's, bright and full of life. The envelope of cash sat unopened on the table beside him. Jack stared at Sarah's photo, his thumb tracing the edge of the frame. The clock on the wall ticked steadily through the night hours, but sleep wasn't an option. Not tonight. Not with the weight of knowing that somewhere out there, someone wanted him dead badly enough to keep trying. Morning light crept through the kitchen windows as Jack cracked eggs into a sizzling pan. The rich aroma of coffee filled the air, mixing with the sound of bacon crackling on the stovetop. Despite having not slept, Jack worked to keep his movements steady and purposeful. "Daddy?" Lily's voice came from the doorway. She stood there in her favorite purple pajamas, her stuffed rabbit tucked under one arm. "Your eyes look sleepy." Jack managed a warm smile. "Just stayed up a bit late reading, sweetheart. Come on, breakfast is almost ready." Lily climbed onto her chair, watching him closely. "You didn't read to me last night." "You're right." Jack slid a plate of scrambled eggs and bacon in front of her. "How about 2 stories tonight to make up for it?" She nodded, but her small face remained concerned. "Promise you're okay?" "Promise." Jack kissed the top of her head, hating the lie but knowing it was necessary. "Now eat up before it gets cold." After dropping Lily at school, Jack headed to the local hardware store. He needed supplies to reinforce the back door's lock. The bell chimed as he entered, and he noticed immediately that the usually busy store was empty except for a tall man studying paint swatches. The man turned, and Jack's muscles tensed. There was nothing overtly threatening about him. He wore casual clothes and work boots, but Jack recognized the careful way he moved, the subtle scan of exits. "Jack Rourke," the man said quietly. "I've been waiting. Let's take this outside." Jack's voice was firm but calm. "Away from any witnesses." They walked to the alley behind the store. The man pulled out a folded paper. Another contract, Jack assumed. But instead of a weapon, "I watched you with your daughter this morning," the man said. "Through my scope. Had a clean shot. Jack's hands clenched. But I saw how she looks at you, like you're her whole world. The man's voice cracked slightly. I had a daughter once. Lost her and her mother in a car crash while I was away on a job. Never forgave myself. He tore the contract in half. Keep her safe, Mr. Rourke. Some of us don't get second chances. The man walked away, leaving Jack standing in the alley, heart pounding. One more down, but how many more to go? By afternoon, Jack was at the grocery store, pushing a cart down the cereal aisle. Lily needed her favorite breakfast cereal, contract killers or not. He reached for the box just as another shopper did the same. Excuse me, the woman said, but her polite smile didn't reach her eyes. Jack knew immediately something in her stance, the slight bulge of a concealed weapon under her jacket. Not here, he murmured. They met in the parking lot, between rows of cars. The woman was professional, direct. I had my doubts about this job, she said. Now I know why. You're not what I expected. What did you expect? Someone deserving of a death sentence. Instead, I find a father buying Lucky Charms. She pulled out an envelope. The money's all there. I'm walking away. Why? Jack asked. She hesitated. I have nephews about your daughter's age. Haven't seen them in years. This job. It made me realize what I've become. She touched the cross hanging around her neck. Maybe it's time to go home. The sun was setting when Jack finally stood on his porch, watching the golden light fade from the sky. 4 hitmen had now turned away, 4 killers who chose mercy over money. But he knew there would be more, 5 more, if his count was right. And behind them all, pulling the strings, was someone who wouldn't stop. Someone with enough money and hatred to hire 9 separate assassins. Someone who wanted him dead badly enough to keep trying until they succeeded. Jack watched a car drive slowly past his house, wondering if it carried number 5. His hand instinctively moved to the cell phone in his pocket, checking that it was charged in case Lily's school needed to reach him. He couldn't afford to let his guard down, not for a moment. The porch light clicked on automatically as darkness settled in. Inside, he could hear Lily humming as she did her homework at the kitchen table. The sound anchored him, reminded him what he was fighting for. Whatever came next, he would face it, not just for himself, but for the little girl who trusted him to always come home. Jack took one last look at the darkening street before heading inside. Lily's voice called out, asking for help with her math homework. He squared his shoulders and went to her, pushing aside thoughts of contracts and killers. For now, there were multiplication tables to solve, and that was all that mattered. The next morning dawned gray and misty. Jack stood at his kitchen window, watching the fog curl around the maple trees in his front yard, his hands wrapped around a steaming coffee mug. But the warmth couldn't chase away the chill he felt inside. 4 assassins had already come and gone, each leaving him more unsettled than the last. A gentle tug at his sleeve made him turn. Lily stood there in her pajamas, rubbing sleep from her eyes. Can we have pancakes today? Of course, sweetheart. Jack managed to smile, setting his mug down to gather the ingredients. As he mixed the batter, a shadow passed across their front window. The 5th hitman didn't bother with subterfuge. He walked right up to their front door and knocked. Jack sent Lily to her room with strict instructions to stay put, then opened the door to face a tall man with salt and pepper hair and weathered hands. Mr. Rourke, the man said simply. May I come in? Jack stepped aside, every muscle tense. The man sat at his kitchen table, declined coffee, and spoke plainly about his mission. But as they talked, his professional demeanor cracked. He kept glancing at Lily's artwork on the fridge, at the family photos on the walls. You lost men under your command, the hitman said suddenly. In the war, Jack's jaw tightened. I did. Yet you still believe in something better. I can see it in how you live. The man pulled out an envelope, the contract money, and laid it on the table. I can't take this job. By nightfall, 2 more had come. The 6th arrived dressed as a telephone repairman, but his act dissolved when he saw Lily helping Jack water the garden. The 7th tried to catch Jack alone at the grocery store, only to witness him buying supplies for the local food bank. The next day brought the 8th and 9th assassins within hours of each other. One caught Jack teaching Lily to ride her bike in the park, steadying her with gentle hands as she wobbled forward. The other found them volunteering at their church's soup kitchen, Lily's laughter brightening the whole room as she handed out rolls. Each man left changed. One admitted he hadn't spoken to his own daughter in years. Another confessed he'd forgotten what it felt like to help someone instead of hurting them. All 9, hardened professionals who'd never questioned a contract before, walked away from the money. "I don't understand," the last one said, shaking his head. "We were warned you were dangerous, but not like this." The sun was setting when Jack finally closed his front door on the 9th visitor. His shoulders sagged with exhaustion, but Lily's voice called from upstairs. "Daddy! Story time!" He climbed the stairs to find her already in bed, her favorite book clutched to her chest. Jack settled beside her, the familiar weight of the book in his hands, comforting after the strain of the past 2 days. "Once upon a time," he began, his voice soft in the lamplight, "there was a brave knight who protected a magical kingdom." Lily snuggled closer, her small hand finding his. As Jack read, the tension in his body slowly unwound. Here, in this moment, everything felt right and safe. A quiet knock at the front door interrupted the story's end. Jack kissed Lily's forehead and went downstairs to find one of the earlier hitmen, the first one, standing on his porch. "I had to come back," the man said, his face grave in the porch light. "You need to know this isn't over. Someone powerful wanted you dead." He shifted uncomfortably. "Someone who won't stop just because we did." Jack nodded slowly, looking back toward Lily's bedroom window where warm light still glowed. The weight of those words settled heavy on his shoulders, but he straightened them anyway. He'd faced worse odds before. For Lily, he would face them again. The hitman turned to leave, then paused. "You know, in all my years doing this work, I've never seen anything like it. 9 of us. 9 of the best. And every single one walked away." He studied Jack's face. "Whatever you have, whatever you believe in, it's stronger than any weapon I've ever carried." The morning sun cast long shadows across Main Street as Jack pulled his old pickup truck into the sheriff's parking lot. The small-town police station, with its weathered brick facade and American flag hanging limp in the still air, looked exactly as it had for the past decade. Jack had always found comfort in its unchanging presence, until now. Inside, the familiar scent of coffee and paper files filled the air. Sheriff Dan Miller, a burly man with salt and pepper hair and kind eyes, looked up from his desk. His weathered face creased with concern when he saw Jack's expression. "Jack Rourke," the sheriff said, rising from his chair, "you look like you haven't slept in days." "I haven't, Dan." Jack sank into the chair across from the desk, his shoulders heavy. "Something's happening. Something I can't explain without sounding crazy." The sheriff leaned forward, folding his hands on his desk. "Try me. Known you since you came back from overseas. You're about the least crazy person I know." Jack ran a hand through his hair, choosing his words carefully. "In the past few days, 9 different men have shown up at my house. Professional hitmen, Dan. Each one was paid to kill me." The sheriff's eyebrows shot up. "Hitmen? In our town?" "I know how it sounds," Jack said, "but it's real. They all had proof, contract details, payment records. The strange thing is, none of them went through with it. They all changed their minds." Sheriff Miller's chair creaked as he leaned back. "Have you noticed anyone following you? Any strange vehicles? Besides the hitmen?" "No." Jack's voice was tired. "But someone's pulling the strings, Dan. Someone with resources." The sheriff typed something into his computer, his expression grim. No unusual activity reported in the area. No strange characters spotted. Nothing that would suggest professional killers in our midst. He looked at Jack sympathetically. "You sure about this, Jack? PTSD can play tricks." "It's not PTSD," Jack cut in firmly. "I know what that feels like. This is different. This is real." The sheriff nodded slowly, but Jack could see the doubt in his eyes. "I'll increase patrols around your neighborhood. That's about all I can do without more concrete evidence." "I understand." Jack stood up, knowing he wouldn't find help here. "Thanks anyway, Dan." The drive home felt longer than usual. Jack's mind raced with possibilities, each more unsettling than the last. Who could have enough influence to hire 9 separate assassins? Who hated him enough to want him dead? As he pulled into his driveway, Mrs. Peterson from next door waved from her garden. Jack managed a weak smile and waved back, maintaining the illusion of normalcy. Inside, the house was quiet, except for the sound of Lily humming in the living room. The phone rang just as he hung up his jacket. Jack stared at it for a moment, his combat instincts screaming that something was wrong. On the third ring, he picked it up. "Hello, Sergeant Rourke." The voice was familiar, a voice he hadn't heard in years, a voice that sent ice through his veins. Or is it just Jack now? Jack's throat went dry. "Marcus?" A bitter laugh crackled through the line. "So you do remember. I wasn't sure, given how easily you forgot about us that night in Kandahar." "Marcus, that night." Jack's free hand clenched into a fist. "We were ambushed. I did everything I could." "Everything you could?" Marcus's voice turned sharp as broken glass. "You left us there, Jack. Left us to die while you played hero with the civilians." "There were children in that building," Jack said quietly. "Women. Innocent people. And what were we? Your own men?" Marcus's breathing was heavy with rage. "I spent 2 years learning to walk again. Thompson and Rivera didn't make it at all. And you? You got a medal and a quiet life with your precious daughter." Jack's eyes darted to the living room, where Lily sat cross-legged on the carpet, carefully brushing her doll's hair. His heart pounded against his ribs. "The hitmen were your doing," Jack said. It wasn't a question. "All 9 of them." Marcus's voice held a smile now, cold and cruel. "Best in the business. Though I have to admit, I didn't expect them all to fail. You always did have a way of making people believe in you, didn't you, Jack? What do you want, Marcus?" "What do I want?" Marcus laughed again, the sound devoid of humor. "I want you to feel what I felt. I want you to watch everything you love slip through your fingers. I want you to know what it's like to be betrayed by someone you trusted." "It wasn't betrayal," Jack said, his voice rough with emotion. "I made a choice that night, the hardest choice of my life. If you'd been there, seen those children—" "Save it!" Marcus cut him off. "Your excuses mean nothing to me. You're going to lose everything, Jack, piece by piece. And when you're broken, when you have nothing left, then maybe you'll understand what you did to us." The line went dead. Jack stood frozen, the phone still pressed to his ear, listening to the empty dial tone. In the living room, Lily's sweet voice drifted through the air as she played with her dolls, completely unaware of the darkness that had just entered their lives. "And then the princess saved everyone," she was saying, making her doll dance through the air. "Because that's what brave people do. They help others, just like Daddy says." Jack lowered the phone slowly, his hands trembling. He watched his daughter through the doorway, her innocent smile, her gentle movements, her absolute trust in the safety of their world. The sight of her, so pure and untouched by the horrors he'd seen, made his chest ache with fear. Marcus's words echoed in his mind. "You're going to lose everything." Jack knew with terrible certainty that this wasn't over. The hitmen had been just the beginning. Marcus wouldn't stop until he had destroyed everything Jack held dear. And there, playing contentedly on the living room floor, was the one thing Jack couldn't bear to lose. The living room lamp cast a warm glow as Jack sat in his old leather armchair, his mind racing with the day's revelations. Lily's coloring books were spread across the coffee table, her crayons scattered like fallen soldiers. The clock on the wall ticked steadily, marking each moment of uncertainty. A firm knock at the door made Jack tense. His hand instinctively moved toward the drawer where he kept his gun, but something about the rhythm of the knock felt familiar. When he opened the door, he found himself face to face with 3 of the men who had tried to kill him just days ago. "Evening, Jack," said the first man, a tall figure with silver-streaked hair who had introduced himself as Marcus. Behind him stood Cooper, the youngest of the group with haunted eyes, and Diego, whose weathered face showed years of hard choices. "What are you doing here?" Jack asked, his voice low to avoid alerting Lily. Marcus shifted his weight. "We've been talking. What happened here? It changed something in us. You showed us something we thought we'd lost a long time ago. And what's that?" Jack's hand remained on the door. "Hope," Cooper said simply. "The way you live, how you care for your daughter, your faith, despite everything. It reminded us there's still good in this world." Diego stepped forward. "We want to help protect you and the little one. Your enemy won't stop just because we refuse the job. He'll find others, maybe worse than us." Jack studied their faces in the porch light. These men had been killers, yet standing before him now he saw something different, a glimpse of the men they might have been before life hardened them. "Daddy?" Lily's voice came from behind him. "Who's at the door?" Jack turned to see his daughter in her butterfly pajamas, clutching her favorite stuffed rabbit. The three men's expressions softened instantly at the sight of her. "Just some friends, sweetheart," Jack said, making a decision. "They're here to help keep us safe." Over cups of coffee in the kitchen, while Lily returned to her coloring, they formed a plan. The men would take shifts watching the house, using their experience to spot any unusual activity. Jack listened as they shared their expertise about security measures and surveillance techniques. "We need to teach Lily how to be careful without scaring her," Jack said, his voice heavy with concern. Marcus nodded. "Make it like a game. Kids are smart. They can learn without being frightened." The next hour was spent working with Lily, teaching her what Jack called their special safety rules. They practiced a code word that meant she needed to go to her room immediately. They showed her how to check if someone was following their car by counting the same vehicle in her side mirror, making it feel like a fun challenge rather than a survival skill. "Like I Spy?" Lily asked, her eyes bright with interest. "Exactly like that, Princess," Jack said, his heart aching at how quickly she adapted to their new reality. Diego taught her a simple hand signal she could use to alert Jack if she saw someone suspicious, disguising it as a secret handshake between father and daughter. Cooper showed her safe routes home from school, presenting them as special shortcuts they could take together. As the evening wore on, the men positioned themselves strategically around the property. Cooper took the first watch from his parked car down the street, while Diego patrolled the perimeter. Marcus stayed inside, helping Jack secure windows and doors. When bedtime came, Lily knelt beside her bed as she did every night. Jack sat on the edge of her mattress, listening to her innocent prayer. "Dear God, please keep Daddy safe, and me too. And please help our new friends who are watching over us. Thank you for sending them to protect us, just like angels." She paused, then added, "And please, help the bad people find good in their hearts, like Daddy always says." Jack's throat tightened. He tucked her in, making sure her rabbit was properly situated under her arm. "Daddy?" she whispered as he kissed her forehead. "Yes, sweetheart? Are you scared?" Jack considered his answer carefully. "Sometimes being brave means doing what's right, even when we are scared. But having friends to help us makes us stronger." Lily nodded sagely, as if this made perfect sense. "Like when you hold my hand when I'm afraid of the dark." "Exactly like that," Jack smiled, smoothing her hair. "Now get some sleep, Princess." After Lily drifted off, Jack joined his unlikely allies in the living room. Marcus cleaned his weapon with practiced efficiency, while Diego sketched a detailed map of the neighborhood, marking potential vulnerability points. Cooper had come in from his watch, replaced by another of their group who had arrived silently during dinner. They sat in companionable silence, these men who had once been strangers united by an unexpected mission. Jack watched them, wondering at the strange turns life could take. Just days ago, they had been his would-be executioners. Now they sat in his home, dedicated to protecting the very life they'd been paid to end. The night stretched ahead, full of shadows and possibilities. But for the first time since receiving that threatening envelope, Jack didn't feel alone in facing whatever was coming. Morning sunlight streamed through the kitchen windows as Jack spread out old photos and documents across the dining table. Marcus, Cooper, and Diego huddled around him, their faces grim with concentration. Coffee mugs dotted the table like chess pieces in a complicated game. "Lily's at school?" Marcus asked, his eyes scanning a weathered photograph. Jack nodded. "My neighbor Mrs. Chen is watching her after. She thinks I'm helping with the Veterans Project." He pulled out his old military notebook, its pages yellow with age. "Everything I have about that day is in here." Cooper leaned forward, his fingers tracing the edge of a mission report. "Your ex-comrade Thompson, he's been busy. Our contacts say he spent months spreading stories about you in places where people hold grudges." Diego shuffled through some papers. Criminal networks, underground circles, anywhere someone might want revenge. He painted you as some kind of monster. Jack's hands trembled slightly as he opened the notebook. It wasn't like that. That day in Kandahar. He paused, steadying his breath. "We were escorting medical supplies. Thompson was my second in command." The kitchen fell silent as Jack turned to a particular page, his handwriting cramped and urgent from that day. "We got intel about a possible ambush. Thompson wanted to take an alternate route through a village. I chose the main road, thought it would be safer." Marcus poured more coffee, the pot scraping against the warmer. "What happened?" "The intel was wrong. The ambush wasn't on our route. It was in the village." Jack's voice grew hoarse. "The very place Thompson wanted to go. Women, children. If we'd gone that way." He shook his head. "But Thompson never saw it that way. He thought I was a coward for taking the main road." When we heard the explosions from the village, Cooper pulled out his phone, checking messages from his network. "Thompson's been telling people you chose to let civilians die to save yourself. That you knew about the attack and did nothing. We lost 3 good men that day trying to help the survivors," Jack said, his fingers tracing the names in his notebook. "Thompson was injured in the rescue attempt. He never forgave me for my choice, even though the other route would have put us right in the middle of it." Diego spread out a map marked with recent sightings. "Thompson's been moving between these 3 cities, always staying just ahead of anyone looking for him. But he's getting sloppy. Left a paper trail at a motel in Carson City last week. They worked through the morning and into the afternoon, piecing together Thompson's movements. Phone records, credit card trails, and whispered rumors from the underground painted a picture of a man consumed by vengeance. "Here," Marcus said finally, pointing to a cluster of markings on the map. "He's setting up something in this area. Multiple rentals under different names, but the patterns match." Jack stared at the location, memories washing over him. "That's less than 2 hours from here. He's been this close all along." As evening settled in, the others left to check their sources, promising to return with more information. Jack stood alone in his kitchen, the day's discoveries weighing heavily on his shoulders. The house felt too quiet, too full of ghosts. Late that night, after checking on sleeping Lily twice, Jack found himself back in the kitchen. The documents still covered the table, each page a reminder of lives lost and choices that could never be undone. His dog tags clinked softly as he pulled them from beneath his shirt, the metal warm from his skin. The memories hit him all at once, the sound of distant explosions, the screams from the village, Thompson's accusations as they pulled survivors from the rubble. His legs gave way, and he sank into a kitchen chair, clutching the dog tags until the edges bit into his palm. Tears he'd held back for years finally broke free. His shoulders shook with silent sobs as the weight of that day crashed over him. He didn't hear the back door open, didn't notice Marcus enter until the man's hand came to rest on his shoulder, firm, understanding, offering silent support in the darkness of the kitchen. The dog tags pressed against his fingers, carrying the names of brothers lost, reminding him of decisions that would haunt him forever. But Marcus's hand remained steady on his shoulder, a quiet reminder that even in the deepest guilt, he wasn't alone anymore. The morning after their late-night strategy session, Jack stood in his kitchen, watching through the window as Marcus knelt beside the rusty swing set in the backyard. The former hitman's sleeves were rolled up, revealing tattooed arms as he tested the chains with careful hands. The sight still felt surreal to Jack. A man who days ago had come to kill him was now fixing his daughter's playground. Inside, Cooper sat at the dining table with Lily, setting up a wooden chess set he'd brought from his car. "Now remember, Princess," he said, his gruff voice softening as he placed each piece. "The pawns can only move forward, one square at a time." Lily's small fingers touched a knight piece. "This one's my favorite. It looks like a horse." "That's the knight," Cooper explained, a gentle smile transforming his weathered face. "It moves in an L shape, like this." He demonstrated the move, and Lily's eyes lit up with understanding. Jack watched them from the kitchen as he prepared lunch. The scene before him seemed impossible, his daughter learning chess from a professional killer. But there was something different in Cooper's eyes now, a warmth that had replaced the cold calculation Jack had first seen. Diego arrived later that afternoon with paint and supplies. "That swing set's going to need more than just new chains," he announced, dropping his bags on the porch. "Thought we might as well do the job right." Throughout the day, Jack observed these men-trained killers transform into something else entirely. Marcus worked tirelessly on the swing set, his methodical precision now used for creation instead of destruction. Cooper showed infinite patience, teaching Lily the intricacies of chess, never once growing frustrated at her beginner's mistakes. Diego hummed as he sanded down rust spots, preparing the metal for a fresh coat of paint. The next morning brought more surprises. 2 other assassins, Rodriguez and Chen, arrived with tools and lumber. "That treehouse could use some reinforcement," Rodriguez said, pointing to the weathered structure in the oak tree. "Can't have it coming down in the next storm." Lily bounced with excitement, following the men around as they worked. She asked countless questions, and to Jack's amazement, these hardened men answered each one with genuine interest. They shared simple stories from their own childhoods, memories they seemed surprised to still have. During lunch breaks, they gathered around the picnic table Jack had set up in the yard. Lily insisted on saying grace, and these men who had seen the darkest corners of humanity bowed their heads respectfully as she thanked God for her new friends. Cooper continued the chess lessons, and Jack noticed how the man's hands, which had surely ended lives, now guided Lily's small fingers with incredible gentleness as she learned to castle her king. "That's it," Cooper encouraged when she made her first capture. "You're a natural, kiddo." The swing set transformation progressed steadily. Marcus and Diego had stripped it down to bare metal, repaired every weak joint, and began applying bright blue paint, Lily's chosen color. She sat nearby, telling them stories about school and her friends, and they listened as if her words were precious gifts. Jack found himself having quiet conversations with these men during breaks. They spoke of regret, of paths taken that couldn't be undone, but in Lily's presence they seemed to find something. They thought they'd lost humanity, perhaps, or the memory of innocence. "I haven't heard my own laugh in years," Rodriguez admitted quietly, watching Lily demonstrate her super special swing technique to Chen. "Didn't think I had it in me anymore." By late afternoon on the second day, the transformation was complete. The swing set gleamed blue against the golden light, its chains new and strong. The treehouse stood sturdy and safe, with fresh boards and a proper railing. Cooper had taught Lily enough chess that she could play a basic game, her face screwed up in concentration with each move. As the sun began to set, casting long shadows across the yard, Jack stood on his back porch. The scene before him was nothing short of miraculous. Lily swung high on her restored swing set, her laughter ringing pure and clear in the evening air. Cooper called out chess moves from the picnic table, while Rodriguez and Chen talked about adding a slide to the treehouse next week. Marcus and Diego sat in lawn chairs, relaxed in a way that suggested they'd forgotten, at least for a moment, the weight of their past lives. Jack watched his daughter soar through the air, her joy infectious enough to bring smiles to faces that had forgotten how. These men who had arrived as harbingers of death had somehow been transformed into protectors, teachers, and friends. The yard echoed with Lily's giggles and the low, warm chuckles of men finding their way back to light. In that moment, as the sky painted itself in shades of pink and gold, Jack smiled. His daughter had accomplished what seemed impossible. She had helped these men remember their own humanity. Her pure heart had reached into their darkness and pulled forth something beautiful. As Lily's laughter mixed with the gentle evening breeze, Jack realized he was witnessing not just redemption, but resurrection, the rebirth of souls long thought lost. The peaceful evening shattered with the sound of breaking glass. Jack's military instincts kicked in before his mind could even process what was happening. A bottle sailed through the front window, flames trailing behind it like an angry comet. "Get down!" Jack shouted, already moving. The living room erupted in orange light as the Molotov cocktail hit the floor, spreading fire across the carpet. Lily screamed from the couch where she'd been reading. Marcus, the hitman who'd spent the afternoon fixing the swing set, scooped her up in one fluid motion and carried her toward the kitchen. "I've got her!" he called out. Two other hitmen, Cooper and Ray, sprang into action with practiced efficiency. Cooper grabbed the fire extinguisher from under the sink, while Ray yanked down the heavy curtains, using them to smother part of the spreading flames. "Stay with her!" Jack ordered Marcus as he rushed to help contain the fire. The acrid smell of smoke filled the house, making his eyes water. His heart pounded, not from exertion but from the terrifying knowledge that someone had just tried to burn them alive. Cooper sprayed white foam across the flames, moving methodically despite the chaos. "Clear the smoke!" he barked, and Ray immediately opened windows on both sides of the room. From the kitchen, Jack could hear Lily crying and Marcus's gentle voice trying to calm her. "It's okay, sweetheart. Your dad and the others have it under control. You're safe." Within minutes, they had the fire out. The living room was a mess of foam, soot, and broken glass, but the damage could have been much worse. Jack's hands shook as he surveyed the scene, imagining what might have happened if he'd been alone with Lily. "They're getting bolder," Cooper said, his face grim as he set down the fire extinguisher. "This isn't just about you anymore, Jack. They're willing to hurt a child." Jack's jaw clenched. My old teammate. He's lost his mind. He ran a hand through his hair, leaving a streak of soot. This isn't warfare anymore. This is pure hatred. Ray appeared at the broken window, gun drawn, scanning the darkness outside. Whoever threw it is long gone, but they left this. He held up a piece of paper, protected in a plastic sleeve. It was weighted down with a rock in the yard. Jack took the note with trembling fingers and read it aloud. Next time, the fire won't be so easy to put out. Daddy? Lily's small voice came from the kitchen doorway. She stood there in her pajamas, clutching Marcus's hand. Her face was tear-stained but composed, showing a bravery that made Jack's heart ache. He crossed to her in 3 quick strides and knelt down, pulling her into a tight hug. I'm here, baby. I'm right here. I was scared, she whispered against his shoulder. I know, sweetheart. But look how many people are here to protect you. He pulled back slightly, gesturing to the 3 men who had just helped save their lives. Sometimes angels come in surprising packages. This earned a weak smile from Lily and uncomfortable shuffling from the hardened hitman. Cooper cleared his throat. We need to move, Jack. We can't wait for him to strike again. Agreed, Marcus said, his expression dark. We've been playing defense. Time to take the fight to him. Ray nodded, holstering his weapon. I've got contacts who can track him down. Give me a few hours. Jack stood, still holding Lily's hand. First, we need to get her somewhere safe for the night. This house isn't secure anymore. My sister has a place just outside town, Cooper offered. Built like a fortress, and she's discreet. Lily will be safe there with a couple of us watching over her. Jack looked down at his daughter, seeing the trust in her eyes despite everything that had just happened. What do you think, sweetheart? Would you be okay staying at a new friend's house tonight? Like a surprise sleepover? Lily glanced around at the men who had become their unlikely guardians. Will you come too, Daddy? Jack's heart twisted. I need to take care of some things first, but I'll see you very soon. Cooper and Marcus will stay with you the whole time. She considered this, then asked, Can I bring Mr. Whiskers? She pointed to her stuffed cat sitting on top of the refrigerator where it had been placed for safekeeping during the chaos. Of course you can, Marcus said, reaching up to grab the toy. His gentle handling of the stuffed animal was a stark contrast to his intimidating appearance. While Cooper called his sister, Jack helped Lily pack a small overnight bag. He tried to make it seem like an adventure rather than an evacuation, but his daughter was perceptive. The bad person who threw the fire, they want to hurt you, don't they? She asked as Jack folded her favorite pajamas. He paused, then sat on her bed. Someone I used to know is very angry with me. But I promise you, I'm going to fix this. Because you're brave, she said with complete confidence. No, sweetheart. Because I have you to protect. He zipped up her bag. And now I have help from some very skilled friends. Within 20 minutes, they had loaded Lily and her things into Cooper's car. Jack stood in the driveway, fighting every instinct that screamed at him not to let her out of his sight. Ready to go, princess? Cooper asked, holding the car door open. Lily hugged Jack one more time, fierce and tight. He breathed in the familiar scent of her strawberry shampoo, trying to memorize everything about this moment. I love you, Lilypad, he whispered, using his special nickname for her. Daddy will keep you safe. He kissed her forehead, even as fear gnawed at his insides. She climbed into the car, clutching Mr. Whiskers. Marcus sat beside her, his imposing presence now a comfort rather than a threat. Jack watched them drive away, the taillights disappearing into the night, before turning to Ray. All right, he said, his voice hard. Let's find him. The morning sun cast long shadows as Jack steered his pickup truck down the interstate. 2 of his unlikely protectors, Marcus and Cooper, sat with him in tense silence. Marcus, the one who'd carried Lily to safety during last night's fire, kept checking his phone for updates from the others watching Jack's house. She'll be safe, Marcus said, noting Jack's worried glance at the phone. Ray and the others won't let anything happen to your little girl. Jack's knuckles whitened on the steering wheel. I know. It's just... He let out a long breath. First time I've been away from her since all this started. Cooper, a lean man with gray-streaked hair, leaned forward from the back seat. The sooner we deal with this, the sooner you can get back to her. They'd gotten word that Jack's former comrade, David Mitchell, had been spotted at a bar called the Rusty Nail in the industrial district of the nearby city. The drive took just over 2 hours, giving Jack plenty of time to wrestle with his thoughts. The bar appeared exactly as Jack expected. A weathered building with peeling paint and neon signs advertising various beers. At this early hour, only a few cars dotted the gravel parking lot. Jack parked around the corner. Out of sight. "Let us go in first," Marcus suggested. "Make sure it's not a trap." Jack shook his head. "No, he needs to see me first." "Alone." Cooper frowned. "That's not smart, Jack." "Maybe not," Jack agreed. "But it's right. Wait 5 minutes, then follow." The bar's interior was dark and cool after the morning sundae. Jack's eyes adjusted slowly as he made his way past empty tables. A few regular customers nursed their drinks, paying him no attention. Behind the bar, a tired-looking woman wiped glasses with mechanical precision. That's when he saw him. David Mitchell sat alone in a corner booth, a half-empty whiskey glass in front of him. The years hadn't been kind. His face was weathered, eyes sunken with dark circles beneath them. He looked up as Jack approached, and a bitter smile twisted his mouth. "Finally found me, huh?" David's voice was raspy. "Came to finish what you started?" Jack slid into the booth across from him. "No, David. I came to end this." "End this?" David barked out a harsh laugh. "Like you ended things in Kandahar? Running away when those people needed us?" Jack kept his voice steady. "You know that's not what happened. We were ambushed. Half our squad was down. If we'd stayed, everyone would have died. We took an oath." David's fist came down on the table, making the whiskey glass jump. "Those civilians trusted us to protect them. Instead, you ordered a retreat." "I ordered a tactical withdrawal to save the lives I could still save." Jack leaned forward, meeting David's angry gaze. "Including yours." Marcus and Cooper had entered the bar by now, positioning themselves casually at nearby tables. Jack could feel their watchful presence, but kept his focus on David. "You don't know," David's voice cracked. "You don't know what it's like, seeing their faces every night, the women, the children." "I do know," Jack said softly. "I see them too, every single night. But destroying my life won't bring them back, David. Neither will hurting my daughter." Something flickered in David's eyes at the mention of Lily. For a moment, the hatred seemed to waver. "I was there when Sarah died," Jack continued, referring to his late wife. "Cancer took her slow. But before she went, she taught me something important about forgiveness. Not just forgiving others, forgiving yourself." David's hands trembled as he reached for his glass. "It's too late for that. It's never too late." Jack pulled out his wallet and removed a small photo. He slid it across the table, a picture of Lily on her swing set, laughing. "This is what matters now. Being there for the living, protecting the innocent ones we still can." David stared at the photo for a long moment. His shoulders sagged, and for the first time, Jack saw past the anger to the broken man beneath. "She looks happy," David whispered. "She is, and she deserves to stay that way." Jack reached across the table, placing his hand on David's arm. "Let it go, brother. Let's end this war between us. There's been enough pain." Tears welled in David's eyes. He picked up the photo with trembling fingers, then handed it back to Jack. Maybe you're right." "Come back with me," Jack offered. "We can talk more, find a way forward." David wiped his eyes with the back of his hand. "I need time to think." Jack nodded slowly. He stood, feeling a weight lift from his shoulders. "When you're ready, you know where to find me." As Jack walked out with Marcus and Cooper, hope bloomed in his chest for the first time in days. Maybe this nightmare was finally ending. Maybe forgiveness really could heal even the deepest wounds. He didn't see the cold calculation that replaced the tears in David's eyes as he watched them leave. Didn't notice the quick phone call David made once they were gone. Jack's thoughts were already racing home to Lily, believing the worst was behind them. The setting sun painted Jack's front yard in shades of amber as he pulled into his driveway. His conversation with his former comrade left him drained but hopeful. Maybe there was still a chance for peace, for healing. The 3 assassins who'd stayed behind to guard Lily were supposed to be waiting with her. But something felt wrong the moment he stepped out of his truck. The house was too quiet. No light spilled from the windows. No sound of Lily's laughter or the TV reached his ears. "Lily?" Jack called out, his heart beginning to race as he rushed to the front door. It was unlocked. Bad sign. "Sweetheart, I'm home!" He burst inside, flipping on lights as he went. The living room was empty. toys scattered across the floor as if Lily had been playing there recently. But where were the men who were supposed to be watching her? "Thompson? Rivera?" Jack shouted for the assassins, his soldier's instincts screaming danger as he cleared each room. In the kitchen, he found Thompson unconscious on the floor, a nasty gash on his forehead. Rivera was slumped against the back door, also knocked out. The third man, Davidson, lay crumpled near the stairs. "No, no, no," Jack muttered, taking the stairs 2 at a time. "Lily, baby, where are you?" Her bedroom door stood open, pink walls now seeming to mock him with their cheerfulness. Her bed was empty, covers thrown back as if she'd been dragged from it. On her pillow lay a folded piece of paper. Jack's hands shook as he picked it up, already knowing what it would say. The message was typed in cold, stark letters. "Face me alone if you ever want to see your daughter again. You know where to find me. Come unarmed, or she dies. Tell anyone, she dies. You have until midnight." His legs gave out, and he sank to the floor, the note crumpling in his fist. The room spun as waves of panic and rage crashed over him. His little girl, his whole world, in the hands of a man consumed by hatred and revenge. "Jack!" Marcus's voice carried up the stairs, followed by multiple sets of footsteps. The other assassins had arrived, probably alerted by their wounded companions downstairs. "Up here!" Jack managed to call out, his voice rough with emotion. They found him sitting against Lily's bed, surrounded by her stuffed animals and picture books. Marcus knelt beside him while Cooper checked the room with professional efficiency. "He took her," Jack whispered, holding out the crushed note. "He got past our defenses and took my baby girl." Marcus read the note, his face hardening. "This isn't your fault, Jack. We'll get her back." "I can't risk her life," Jack said, pushing himself to his feet. "He wants me alone. I have to go alone." "Like hell you will," Cooper growled, holstering his weapon. "That's exactly what he wants. To isolate you, make you vulnerable." The other assassins crowded the doorway now, their faces grim but determined. These men who had once come to take his life were now ready to risk theirs to save his daughter. "Jack," Marcus said firmly, gripping his shoulder. "Remember what you showed us? About second chances, about not having to face darkness alone? Let us help you. We won't let him see us coming." Jack looked around at these hardened men who had been transformed by Lily's innocent love and his own unwavering faith. Tears burned in his eyes as he nodded slowly. "We need a plan," he said, wiping his face. "He'll be expecting me to come to the old factory where our unit was stationed. It's where everything went wrong all those years ago." The assassins spread out maps, checked weapons, and began forming strategies with practiced efficiency. But Jack couldn't focus. His mind kept returning to Lily's face, her bright smile, her trusting eyes. Was she scared? Was she crying for him? He slipped away from the tactical discussion and knelt beside her small bed. Her favorite stuffed rabbit lay there, the one she always needed to sleep with. Jack picked it up, pressing his face into its soft fur as tears flowed freely. "Please," he prayed, his voice breaking. "Please keep her safe. I can't lose her too. Give me strength to face this. Help me find a way to end this without more bloodshed." Behind him, the assassins worked quietly, respecting his private moment of anguish while they prepared for what was to come. These men, who had lived by violence, were now planning to save an innocent child, moved by the very compassion and faith that had stayed their hands against Jack. The sun had fully set now, darkness gathering outside Lily's window. Somewhere out there, his daughter was being held by a man tortured by old wounds and bitter memories. Jack clutched the stuffed rabbit tighter, drawing strength from the love it represented. Time was ticking away, each moment bringing them closer to midnight. But Jack wasn't alone anymore. Around him, 9 reformed killers readied themselves for battle. Not for money this time, but for redemption, for love, for the chance to protect the kind of innocence they'd thought lost from the world. "We're ready," Marcus said softly from the doorway. "We'll bring her home, Jack. Whatever it takes." Jack stood slowly, gently placing the rabbit back on Lily's pillow. His tears had dried, replaced by steely determination. They would get his daughter back. And somehow, some way, he would find a path to healing, not just for Lily and himself, but for the broken man who had taken her. The assassins gathered their gear, moving with practiced silence. Jack took one last look at Lily's empty room before following them downstairs. His prayer for strength still echoed in his heart as they stepped into the night, ready to face whatever darkness awaited them. The abandoned warehouse loomed against the pre-dawn sky, a hulking shadow at the edge of town. Jack crouched behind a rusted shipping container, his breath forming small clouds in the cold morning air. Around him, spread out in strategic positions, were the 9 men who had once been sent to kill him but now risked their lives to save his daughter. Marcus, the first assassin who'd spared Jack's life, touched his shoulder. "We've got movement on the east side," he whispered. 2 guards. Jack nodded, his military training taking over despite the fear churning in his stomach. He couldn't let emotion cloud his judgment. Lily needed him to think clearly. The warehouse stretched before them, its broken windows like dark, empty eyes staring down at them. "Remember," Jack said softly to the men gathered closest to him, "no unnecessary violence. These are just hired guns. They're not the target." The assassins exchanged glances. They'd seen something change in themselves during their time with Jack and Lily. Violence no longer came as easily as it once had. Ray, a former sniper who'd taught Lily chess just days ago, checked his watch. "Dawn's in 40 minutes. We should move now, while it's still dark enough for cover." They split into 3 teams, just as they'd planned. Jack led the main group toward the loading dock, while the others circled to the sides. Their footsteps were silent on the gravel, years of training evident in every careful movement. The first guard never saw Ray coming. A quick sleeper hold, and the man was unconscious, carefully hidden behind some crates. The second guard met a similar fate on the opposite side of the building. Jack's heart ached at the necessity of it all, but he pushed the feeling aside. Focus on Lily. Just focus on Lily. Inside, the warehouse was a maze of shipping containers and abandoned machinery. Dust motes danced in the pale beams of their flashlights. Jack moved forward, every sense alert for signs of his daughter or his former brother in arms. A crash echoed from somewhere above, followed by a curse. Jack froze, listening intently. More guards were patrolling the upper catwalks. He signaled to his team, and they pressed themselves against the containers, becoming one with the shadows. "Check the noise," a gruff voice called from above. "Boss wants no surprises." Footsteps clanged on metal stairs. Jack held his breath as a guard passed within feet of their position. Once the man was past, Marcus slipped out and followed him silently, taking him down with practiced efficiency. They continued deeper into the warehouse, disabling 3 more guards along the way. Jack's pulse quickened with each step. Lily was here somewhere. He could feel it. Then he heard it, a sound that made his heart stop. "Daddy?" Lily's voice echoed faintly through the cavernous space. "I want to go home." Jack's hands clenched into fists. Every fiber of his being wanted to rush toward that voice, but he forced himself to stay cautious. This was exactly the kind of reaction his former comrade would be counting on. "Second level," Ray whispered, pointing to a metal staircase. Voice came from the office area. The team moved like shadows up the stairs, testing each step to prevent any telltale creaks. The upper level was a warren of old offices with dirty windows looking down over the warehouse floor. Light spilled from one room at the end of the hall. Actual electric light, not just flashlights. They positioned themselves along the hallway. Jack could hear multiple voices now, including his ex-comrade's distinctive growl. Through the grimy windows, he caught glimpses of movement inside the lit office. "Your daddy's not coming, kid," the familiar voice said. "He's too much of a coward. You're wrong." Lily's voice was fierce despite her fear. "My daddy's the bravest person ever." Jack's chest swelled with pride even as worry gnawed at him. That was his girl. Strong, even in the face of danger. Just like her mother had been. Marcus touched Jack's arm, pointing out the positions of everyone they could see in the room. 4 guards, plus the ex-comrade. Lily appeared to be seated in the center, but unrestrained. They knew Jack wouldn't risk anything rash with his daughter in the middle of potential crossfire. The assassins spread out, each taking position near a different entry point. They'd worked out the plan carefully, multiple angles of approach. No chance for anyone to use Lily as a shield. Jack's hand rested on the door handle of the main entrance, waiting for the signal. Ray's voice came soft through their earpieces. "All units in position." Jack closed his eyes for a moment, remembering all the prayers he and Lily had shared over dinner, all the times they'd asked for protection and guidance. "Lord," he whispered, "keep my daughter safe." He took a deep breath, drew himself up, and kicked open the door. The metal door crashed open under Jack's boot. His heart stopped at the sight before him. Lily sat tied to a wooden chair in the center of the vast warehouse floor, tears streaming down her face. Behind her, Colonel James Marcus, Jack's former commander and now bitter enemy, pressed a pistol against her temple. "Daddy!" Lily cried out, her small voice echoing through the cavernous space. "It's okay, sweetheart," Jack said softly, keeping his voice steady despite the rage and fear coursing through him. "Everything's going to be okay." The warehouse air hung heavy with dust and tension. Shafts of early morning light pierced through broken windows high above, creating spotlights in the gloom. Behind Jack, he knew his unlikely allies, the 9 assassins, were spreading out, taking positions in the shadows. "That's far enough, Rourke," Colonel Marcus barked, his hand visibly shaking as he gripped the gun. Dark circles ringed his eyes, and his usually pristine military bearing had deteriorated into something desperate and wild. "You really thought you could just walk away from what happened? Live your perfect little life while the rest of us carried the burden?" Jack raised his empty hands, making no move toward the holstered weapon at his hip. "James, please. Look at what you're doing. She's an innocent child." "Innocent?" Marcus spat the word. "Like those children in the village? The ones your hesitation got killed?" Lily whimpered, and Jack's heart clenched, but he kept his voice calm, reasonable. "We both know that's not what happened. The intel was wrong. The insurgents used those families as shields. Neither of us could have known." "You pulled us back," Marcus shouted, his voice cracking. "We could have taken them all out, saved our men." "And killed every civilian in that village," Jack replied quietly. "Including the children, just like my Lily." From the shadows, Jack caught glimpses of the assassins moving into position, but he gave them a subtle hand signal to hold. This wasn't about force anymore. It never had been. "Your men trusted you," Marcus continued, but something in his voice wavered. "Peterson, Rodriguez, Chen, they all died because you were weak." "They died because war's hell," Jack said, taking one careful step forward. "We all carry that weight, James, every day. But this isn't the way to honor their memory." Lily's eyes met Jack's, full of trust despite her tears. The sight nearly broke him, but he drew strength from her courage. "Remember what you taught us, Colonel?" Jack pressed on. "About protecting the innocent? About being the kind of soldiers America could be proud of?" He gestured to Lily. "Look at her, James. Really look. Is this what Peterson would have wanted? What any of them would have wanted?" Marcus's hand trembled more violently now. "You don't get to speak their names." "They were my brothers too," Jack said softly. "Every night I see their faces. I pray for their families, but I also know that if we'd gone in guns blazing that day, we'd have become exactly what we were fighting against." The morning light grew stronger, illuminating the tears now rolling down Marcus's weathered face. "It should have been you," he whispered. "You should have died instead of them." "Maybe so," Jack agreed. "There's not a day I don't think that same thing. But killing me won't bring them back, and hurting Lily. That'll destroy whatever's left of the good man I served with. The man those soldiers looked up to." For a long moment, only Lily's quiet sobs broke the silence. Jack could feel the assassins watching, weapons ready, but following his lead in this delicate dance between violence and redemption. "She has her mother's eyes," Jack said gently. "Sarah's been gone 3 years now. Lily's all I have left. Please, James, don't make her grow up without a father. Don't carry that weight, too." Marcus's gaze darted between Jack and Lily, his finger tightening and loosening on the trigger. "I see them every night, too," he confessed, his voice barely a whisper. "The men, the villagers, all of them. I thought if I made you pay." "I know," Jack said. "Believe me, I know. But there's a better way. There has to be." The gun shook violently in Marcus's grip as he shouted, "How? How do you live with it? How do you smile and make dinner and act like the world isn't soaked in blood?" "Because of her," Jack answered simply, nodding toward Lily. "Because every time I look at her, I'm reminded that there's still innocence in the world. Still hope. The men we lost, they died protecting that hope. Don't destroy it here, not like this." Colonel Marcus's hand trembled violently, the gun wavering against Lily's temple. Tears began streaming down his weathered face, cutting trails through the grime and stubble. His breath came in ragged gasps. I can't do this anymore, he choked out. The pistol dropped from his fingers, clattering onto the concrete floor. He stumbled backward, collapsing against a rusty support beam and sliding down to sit in the dust. Jack didn't hesitate. He sprinted to Lily, his boots echoing through the warehouse. His hands shook as he worked at the ropes binding her small wrists. I've got you, baby girl. I've got you. Lily threw her arms around his neck the instant she was free, burying her face against his shoulder. Daddy, she sobbed. I was so scared. I know, sweetheart, I know. Jack held her tight, breathing in the familiar scent of her strawberry shampoo. His heart thundered in his chest as the reality hit him, how close he'd come to losing her. He pressed a kiss to her hair, whispering, You're safe now. You're safe. The 9 assassins emerged from their positions, moving like shadows through the dusty light. They formed a loose circle, weapons lowered but ready. Their faces showed a mix of relief and lingering tension. Colonel Marcus sat crumpled on the floor, his shoulders heaving with broken sobs. I'm sorry, he gasped. God help me. I'm so sorry. Jack gently set Lily down, keeping hold of her hand. He turned to the nearest assassin, a gruff man called Murphy. Watch her for a moment? Murphy nodded, his usually hard expression softening as he looked at Lily. He knelt beside her, pulling a chocolate bar from his pocket. Hey kid, want to share this with me? Jack crossed the warehouse floor to where his former commander sat destroyed. He crouched down beside the man who had once been like a father to him, who had taught him everything he knew about leadership and courage. The man who, consumed by grief and guilt, had tried to destroy him. James, Jack said softly, using his first name for the first time in years. Marcus looked up, his face a mask of anguish. How can you even look at me? After what I just... His voice cracked. I was going to. A child, Jack. I threatened a child. But you didn't go through with it, Jack said. You found your humanity again. That mission. Marcus shook his head. Those civilians. I've carried it for so long. Blamed you because I couldn't face my own part in it. The intelligence was bad. The orders were wrong. But I was in command. Their deaths are on me. Jack reached out and gripped Marcus's shoulder. They're on all of us. War is hell, and sometimes innocent people die no matter how hard we try to prevent it. But this isn't the way to find peace. Marcus broke down completely then. Jack did something that surprised everyone in the warehouse. He pulled his former commander into a tight embrace. The older man clutched at Jack's jacket, sobbing like a child. I forgive you, Jack said, his voice thick with emotion. For all of it. The hit contracts, threatening Lily, everything. Let it go now. Let's both let it go. The assassins watched in stunned silence. These men, who dealt in death and shadow, witnessed something they'd never seen before. True redemption unfolding before their eyes. Several of them discreetly wiped at their own eyes. Lily's small voice carried across the warehouse. Daddy? Is the sad man okay? Jack looked over his shoulder at his daughter. He will be, sweetheart. Sometimes grown-ups just need to cry and say sorry, just like you do sometimes. Marcus lifted his head, staring at Lily with red-rimmed eyes. I'm so sorry, little one. I was very wrong to scare you like that. Lily slipped her hand free from Murphy's and walked over, stopping a few feet away. My daddy says everyone deserves a second chance if they're really sorry. A watery laugh escaped Marcus. Your daddy is a wise man. Jack helped Marcus to his feet. The colonel swayed slightly, exhausted by emotion and the weight of years of hatred finally lifting. Two of the assassins stepped forward to steady him. Get him some help, Jack told them. Real help, not prison. He's a good man who lost his way. The morning sun had risen higher now, streaming through the warehouse windows in golden shafts. Jack walked back to Lily and scooped her up in his arms. She wrapped her legs around his waist and her arms around his neck, holding on tight. Ready to go home, baby girl? Yes, please, she mumbled into his neck. Can we have pancakes? Jack laughed, the sound full of relief and joy. We can have anything you want. He carried her toward the warehouse entrance, the assassins parting to make way. Murphy held the door open, sunlight flooding in. Jack stepped out into the crisp morning air, holding his daughter close. The sunrise painted the sky in shades of pink and gold, a new day dawning with the promise of peace. Behind them, one of the assassins muttered, "Never seen anything like that in all my years." "That's because most people choose revenge," another replied quietly. "Takes a stronger man to choose forgiveness." Jack didn't hear them. He was focused entirely on the precious weight in his arms, the warmth of the sun on his face, and the profound gratitude that filled his heart. He had his daughter back, safe and sound, and that was all that mattered. The morning sun streamed through Jack's kitchen windows, casting a warm glow across the worn wooden table where 9 former hitmen sat shoulder to shoulder with Jack and Lily. The smell of pancakes and coffee filled the air as Lily, still in her pajamas with tousled hair, poured syrup over her breakfast with careful concentration. Jack watched his daughter, his heart full. Just hours ago, he'd feared he might lose her forever. Now here she was, safe and sound, chattering away to these dangerous men as if they were favorite uncles. The events at the warehouse felt like a distant nightmare, replaced by this surreal but touching scene. "More pancakes, Mr. Rodriguez?" Lily asked the burly man sitting next to her. His tattoo-covered hands looked massive, wrapped around the delicate flower-patterned coffee mug Jack's wife had picked out years ago. Rodriguez smiled softly. "Thank you, Pequeña," he said, letting her slide another pancake onto his plate. "You know, I have a little girl about your age." The table grew quiet. Rodriguez stared down at his plate, his voice thick with emotion. "Haven't seen her in 3 years. Been too ashamed of the work I was doing." "You should go to her," Lily said simply, reaching over to pat his arm. "Everyone deserves a second chance. Daddy says so." Jack caught Rodriguez's eye across the table and nodded encouragingly. The big man wiped roughly at his face with a napkin. "She's right," said Peters, the lean ex-Marine turned hitman who'd been the first to spare Jack's life. "We've all got things to make right." He set down his fork, looking around the table. "I'm done with this life. Called my handler this morning and retired." Murmurs of agreement rippled through the group. Thompson, the youngest among them, spoke up. "I've got savings. Thinking of opening a security firm, legitimate work, helping people instead of hurting them. Could use a partner," added Chen, the former Special Forces operator. "Someone who knows the business from both sides." Jack listened as one by one the men opened up about their hopes for redemption. Morrison wanted to reconnect with his elderly mother in Arizona. Walsh had dreams of starting a youth mentoring program. Garcia spoke of returning to school. Lily moved around the table, refilling coffee cups and offering encouraging words that only a child could deliver with such pure sincerity. "You'll be a great teacher, Mr. Garcia," she exclaimed. "You're so smart." The hardened killer actually blushed, ducking his head to hide his smile. Jack stood to clear some plates, and O'Malley jumped up to help him. At the sink, the Irishman spoke quietly. "Never thought I'd say this, but your little girl saved us all, Jack. Not just from bullets, but from ourselves." "She has that effect on people," Jack replied, thinking of how Lily had helped him find his way back after losing her mother. "She sees the good in everyone." "The world needs more of that," O'Malley said, drying a plate with careful attention. "Makes a man want to be worthy of it." Back at the table, Lily had climbed into Baker's lap, the massive former boxer who'd once been feared across 3 continents. Now he was showing her a magic trick with a quarter, his scarred hands moving with surprising gentleness. "Watch closely," Baker said, making the coin disappear. Lily's delighted giggle seemed to transform his entire face, softening years of hardness into something approaching peace. "Do it again," she demanded, clapping her hands. "You know what?" Baker said, pressing the quarter into her palm. "Keep it. It's magic now, just like you." Lily beamed at him, then threw her arms around his thick neck in a tight hug. "You're good now," she whispered. But everyone heard it in the quiet kitchen. Baker's massive frame shuddered slightly as tears rolled down his weathered cheeks. His huge hands, capable of so much violence, patted Lily's back with infinite tenderness. Jack watched the scene unfold, struck by the profound change in these men who had entered his life as enemies but would leave as something else entirely. The morning light caught the tears on Baker's face, turning them to gold, while Lily's small form pressed against his chest seemed to anchor him to this new path he'd chosen. Around the table, the other men watched with matching expressions of quiet wonder, as if witnessing something sacred, the power of a child's pure love to wash away years of darkness and point the way toward light. The next morning dawned clear and bright, a gentle breeze rustling through the maple trees that lined Jack's modest yard. Inside the house, Duffel bags and worn leather jackets lay scattered near the front door as 9 men prepared for their departures. The atmosphere was thick with unspoken emotions. These hardened men who had arrived as killers were leaving as something entirely different. In the kitchen, Marcus, the oldest of the group, sat at the table showing Lily one final card trick. His weathered hands moved with surprising grace as he shuffled the deck. "Now watch closely, Princess," he said, his gruff voice softened just for her. Lily leaned forward, her eyes wide with wonder as the ace of hearts seemed to appear from thin air. "You have to teach me that before you go," she insisted, bouncing in her seat. Marcus glanced at Jack, who stood by the counter nursing his coffee, and something passed between the two men, an understanding that went deeper than words. "Maybe next time I visit," Marcus promised, tucking the deck away. "Your dad says good people are always welcome here." In the living room, Rico was fixing the broken hinge on the front door, one last act of service before heading out. "Should hold proper now," he said, testing the swing. "My daughter's about Lily's age. Haven't seen her in 3 years." He paused, tools in hand. "Think maybe it's time to try making things right." Jack stepped closer, placing a firm hand on Rico's shoulder. "It's never too late to start over," he said quietly. "You've got my number if you need anything." Throughout the morning, the men gathered their few belongings, each one stopping to say goodbye to Lily, who insisted on hugging every single one. Even the most hardened among them melted at her embrace. Some awkwardly patted her head, others knelt down to her level, but all were visibly moved by her simple, pure acceptance. Tommy, the youngest of the group, struggled with his goodbye the most. "You know what, kid?" he said, kneeling before Lily. "You and your dad showed me something I thought was gone from the world. Goodness. Real goodness." He pulled out his wallet and removed a small photo. "This is my mom. I haven't called her in 6 years, but I'm going to see her today." Lily studied the photo carefully. "She looks nice," she said. "I bet she misses you lots and lots." "Yeah," Tommy replied, his voice rough. "I bet she does." As the morning wore on, the men began departing one by one. Each farewell followed a similar pattern. Firm handshakes with Jack that turned into unexpected hugs, final words of gratitude, and promises to stay in touch. Jack gave each man the same message. "My door is always open to you. Remember what you found here." Victor, who had been the first to spare Jack's life, was among the last to leave. He stood on the porch steps, looking back at the house. "You know, Rourke," he said, "I've killed men for 20 years. Thought I was beyond saving." He shook his head slowly. "Never figured my redemption would come from failing to kill someone." Jack smiled. "Sometimes our biggest failures are God's greatest mercies." The men who had arrived as strangers departed as brothers, of a sort bound not by blood or violence, but by the unexpected grace they'd found in Jack's home. Some spoke of returning to families they'd abandoned, others of starting fresh in new cities. Each carried with them a piece of the peace they'd discovered here. As the afternoon drew to a close, only 2 cars remained in front of Jack's house. The last 4 men loaded their bags, exchanging quiet words about their plans. One was heading west to California, another east to Boston. They'd arrived as lone wolves but were leaving with something like hope in their eyes. Lily stood on the porch steps beside her father, clutching his hand as they watched the final preparations. "Daddy," she said, "will they come back to visit?" Jack squeezed her small hand. "Some of them will, sweetheart, and that's a miracle all its own." The last goodbyes were said without much ceremony. These men, who had lived in shadows for so long, stepped into the sunshine with new purpose. Their final handshakes with Jack were firm, meaningful, a silent promise to honor what had transpired here. The last 2 cars started their engines. Through open windows, hands raised in farewell. Lily waved enthusiastically, her free hand moving back and forth until both vehicles disappeared around the corner. The sound of their engines faded into the distance, leaving behind a profound silence. Jack and Lily remained on the porch, their figures silhouetted against the late afternoon Sunday. A chapter had closed, but the story of redemption that had unfolded within these walls would ripple outward through 9 changed lives. Father and daughter stood together, watching the empty street where killers had departed as friends. The late afternoon sun painted the town park in warm, golden hue. Jack spread out a red and white checkered blanket under the shade of an ancient oak tree, its branches spreading wide like protective arms above them. Lily helped him unpack their picnic basket, carefully arranging sandwiches, fresh strawberries, and her favorite chocolate chip cookies on paper plates. "Daddy, can we say grace?" Lily asked, folding her small hands in her lap. Her blue sundress matched the clear sky above, and a gentle breeze played with her pigtails. Jack smiled, his heart swelling with love. "Of course, sweetheart." He reached for her hand, and together they bowed their heads. "Dear Lord, thank you for this beautiful day, for this food, and for keeping us safe. Thank you for sending angels in unexpected forms to protect us. Amen." "Amen," Lily echoed cheerfully, immediately reaching for a sandwich. Jack watched her eat, marveling at her resilience. Just a week ago, they had lived through events that would have broken many adults. Yet here she sat, humming as she picked the crust off her bread, her spirit undiminished. Children, he thought, had an extraordinary capacity for healing. The park buzzed with normal weekend activity, families pushing strollers, teenagers tossing frisbees, dogs chasing balls. It felt surreal how ordinary everything seemed now, how peaceful. Jack's military training had taught him to stay alert, to always watch for threats, but for the first time in weeks, he felt his shoulders truly relax. He thought about the 9 men who had entered their lives as harbingers of death, but left as protectors, each transformed by an unexpected encounter with grace. Marcus had called yesterday from Michigan, where he'd reunited with his estranged daughter after 15 years. Carlos was in California, enrolling in a counseling program to help troubled youth. Even Thompson, the youngest of the group, had sent a photo of himself volunteering at a local church. "Daddy, look." Lily pointed to a butterfly landing on their blanket. "It's just like the one in my storybook." Jack watched the delicate creature, its wings painted in brilliant orange and black. How fitting, he thought, that nature would offer such a perfect symbol of transformation. Like these men, the butterfly had emerged from darkness into something beautiful. Leaning back on his elbows, Jack closed his eyes and offered a silent prayer. "Thank you, Lord, for second chances, for showing me that your light can pierce even the darkest hearts. Thank you for protecting Lily, for giving these men new purpose, for turning would-be enemies into guardians. Help me always remember that love is stronger than hatred, that faith can move mountains or change assassins into allies." The sound of children laughing drew his attention. A group of kids had started a game of tag nearby, and Lily watched them longingly. "Go ahead," Jack nodded, and she jumped up with a squeal of delight. As she ran to join them, Jack remembered his former comrade, now in custody, but receiving the help he needed. The man's breakdown in the warehouse had been a turning point, not just for him, but for everyone present. Watching hardened killers cry as Jack offered forgiveness, instead of vengeance, had been powerful beyond words. The afternoon light shifted, creating long shadows across the grass. Jack watched Lily playing, her laughter carried on the breeze. She ran with complete abandon, trusting in her safety, believing in the goodness of the world despite everything she'd seen. Her faith humbled him. "Daddy!" she called out suddenly, running back toward him with her arms outstretched. "Catch me!" Jack stood up, his heart full to bursting as his daughter flew into his embrace. He lifted her high, spinning her around as she giggled. When he brought her close, she wrapped her small arms around his neck, and he breathed in the sweet scent of her hair. "We're safe now, sweetheart," he whispered, holding her tight. "We're safe." Her only response was to squeeze him tighter, and in that moment, bathed in golden sunlight and wrapped in pure love, Jack knew with absolute certainty that grace had triumphed. This embrace, this precious child, this moment of perfect peace, it was everything. It was enough. It was more than enough. Lily pulled back just enough to look into his eyes, her face glowing with joy and trust. The setting sun caught her hair like a halo, and Jack saw in her smile all the hope and promise that made life worth living. Here, in this ordinary park, on this extraordinary afternoon, father and daughter stood wrapped in an embrace that spoke of victory, of healing, of love's power to transform the darkest night into brightest day. What would you do if you were in their place? Comment your answer below and let's see how you'd rewrite the ending. If you enjoyed the story of Jack Rourke, I handpicked the next story that you will enjoy. Please don't miss this one. Click here to watch it.